Do the Portland Trailblazers need to trade Robert Williams? Robert Williams is one of the best defenders in the NBA and was a key part of the Drew Holiday trade last summer. So why do so many people want to trade him? Everyone's talking about DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan, but the forgotten and arguably hidden gem of the Blazers roster and center rotation is Robert Williams. Today, I want to break down his skill set, his fit on the team, and at the very end, I'll break down the pros and cons of trading him. Does he benefit the Blazers, or should he be traded at all costs? Shout out to Robert Allen for commenting on my last video, which, funny enough, is actually the topic of this video. Comment down below for a chance to be featured in the next video, and of course, it's gonna help if you're subscribed. First, let's start by talking about Robert Williams and his skill set. Now, the skills that really stand out about him is the fact that he's an elite rim protector, shot blocker, rebounder, and he's elite on defense. He might not bring as much on the offensive side of the court, but when Robert Williams is healthy, he's one of the best defenders in the league and a nightmare for any teams to match up against. There's a reason why in 2022 he finished top 7 in Defensive Player of the Year rating. His ability to move laterally, jump and shot blocks, his knack for rebounding, and the ability to just protect the rim at all costs is a very valuable and hard to teach skill set that Robert Williams possesses. Now, I mentioned his offensive skill set isn't the best, but it's worth noting that from 2018 to 2022, he improved his points per game each and every season. The 2021 and 2022 season was his best year by far, averaging 10 points per game. Now, that might not sound like the best, but considering he was improving each season, I think that gave fans a lot of hope. He also has never shot below 70% on the season, except for this last year in Portland where he only played 6 games. But what about his areas of weakness? Now, of course, the biggest weakness for Robert Williams is his ability to stay on the court and his overall health. As in the last 2 seasons, out of a total of 164 games, he has only played 41. That's only a 25% availability rating over the last 2 years. And of course, the last 2 seasons haven't been the best for him, but his career numbers aren't that great either. As out of a total potential of 492 games, he's only competed in 215 of those. That's less than half. And obviously that's not very good. Another weakness of Robert Williams is the fact that he has literally never made a 3-point shot in the NBA. His career 3-point percent is 0. He has only taken a 3-point shot in 3 of his 6 seasons that he's played in the NBA, and he has never made one. So I don't even know if I'd call that a weakness, but that is truly a lack of a skill set. Obviously, he doesn't necessarily need to be a big 3-point shooter considering he's a center and someone who just plays defense and knows what he brings on a night-to-night basis, but it would be nice to see him have that skill set or at least be able to make a shot from the 3-point line here and there, as I feel like that would bring a lot of floor spacing to whatever team he's on. Regardless though, whenever he is healthy and actually is playing in NBA games, he's usually not on the court for very long, as he has a very low minutes played on average per season, where on the season he's averaged 20.5 minutes per game, but his best season was in the 21-22 season where he averaged 29.6 minutes per game. Now obviously that 2021-2022 season is a bit of an outlier both on offense and minutes played, but I think that season gives fans a lot of hope as to what they think he can potentially become one day when healthy. But now let's focus on his fit on the Blazers. As when the team is healthy, Robert Williams is currently the 3rd string center in the lineup behind DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan. And I don't really think I would argue with anyone saying that Robert Williams is a better player right now than Donovan Clingan is, but obviously I've talked about Clingan multiple times in the past, and if the Blazers drafted him to be their center of the future, he obviously needs the minutes and developmental time over a guy like Robert Williams. And Robert Williams and his health just kind of makes it hard to be able to rely on him on a night-to-night basis. You never know if he's going to get hurt or leave a game, and so really being able to pour into him and rely on him consistently as a backup center just doesn't seem realistic. And then you look at his skill set, as I talked about earlier in the video, and there's just so much overlap between him and Donovan Clingan that it wouldn't really make sense to give him minutes over Donovan Clingan consistently. So as far as his fit goes, he doesn't really have a fit on the Blazers. You could argue he could be a good 3rd string center, but when you have a guy like Duop Reith who has shown a lot of potential and kind of fits that role as a far backup center better, it just feels like you're losing out on a lot of potential with him, especially if he's healthy. Which is where we start moving towards the whole should he be traded or not. But first, what would a realistic trade scenario even look like? Well, realistically, there's only 2 possible scenarios for him. Either one, they trade him for nothing and try to get back a few 2nd round picks and some salary filler in return for him. And this would probably look like being traded to a team like the Grizzlies or the Hornets or maybe even the Bulls, who wouldn't have to give out much salary in return, could attach a couple 2nd round picks and get a nice backup center that they can invest in long term. Or the Blazers would opt to keep him and play him as much as they can and try to build back up his trade value and get him healthy. And then say before the trade deadline he plays in 20-25 games, maybe he would be able to fetch the Blazers a late 1st round pick, and then maybe a team like Memphis, who is trying to make a playoff push, would trade for him to be a reliable, solid backup center. As for Memphis right now, it seems like Zach Edey is going to be their center of the future, and so if they can get a guy like Robert Williams who could start or could be a backup center on any night and plays elite defense, I think that skill set could definitely be useful and valuable to a lot of teams. The thing is though, should the Blazers even want to hold on to Robert Williams? Is it worth trying to rehab him and build him back up while he's taking up a roster spot? Or should they just move off of him now and get whatever they can for him? That's where we move into the pros and cons of trading him. First, let's start with the pros. You could get some future assets for him, likely just a couple second round picks, maybe an expiring contract, or maybe if you're lucky, you could get a deep first round pick for him. You'd also be able to free up some salary cap space, which would obviously open up some flexibility for future moves. You also wouldn't really have to worry about getting him minutes on a night-to-night basis and would just open up that third string center spot for Duop Reath a lot better. Now, of course, Duop Reath last year showed that he has the ability to be a backup center, and so if he can be that third string center where he can slide in and be a backup in the event of an injury, then I feel like that just cleans things up and sort of solves the logjam at the center rotation. As I mentioned before, you wouldn't have to worry about getting Robert Williams minutes if you trade him, which would just really put a lot of focus on Donovan Clingan, and wouldn't have to worry about taking minutes away from him to give to Robert Williams. And if he's hurt or rehabbing and not playing very much, then you could always just open up a roster spot, take on an expiring contract, and just overall have a bit more flexibility going into the trade deadline in February. Now, what about the cons of trading him? Well, you would likely end up selling low on a player who's still a bit younger and has lots of potential. As we saw in that 2021-2022 season, he has the ability to be one of the best defenders in the league, score double-doubles on a night-to-night basis, and be an elite rim protector. And so if the Blazers trade him for a couple second-round picks and an expiring contract, and he goes on to become a defensive player of the year candidate guy, then you'd really just be selling low on a key part to that Drew Holiday trade. The Blazers would also lose out on that defensive presence that Robert Williams brings, and you'd have a bit less security in the event of injuries. Because say the Blazers trade Robert Williams and then Duop Reath and Donovan Clingan go down with an injury, then your only hope is playing DeAndre Ayton, and then you'd have to play some small ball center with a guy like Jabari Walker, which obviously isn't ideal. And so you'd be losing out on a bit of that security that Robert Williams brings. And if he's not fully healthy yet, not making a lot of money, and doesn't require a lot of minutes, then it could be beneficial just to hold on to him. Now, as far as if Portland needs to move off of him or not, I'd say it definitely could be beneficial for them to trade him, but there isn't necessarily any harm in keeping him on the team, especially if they try to up his trade value and trade him at the deadline or even next offseason. And if he doesn't have much trade value right now and isn't taking up a roster spot that the Blazers need, then personally I'd rather hold on to him than trade him for cheap. But comment below and let me know your thoughts on if the Blazers should or should not move off of him and where you'd like to see him go if he is traded. Make sure to like the video and subscribe for more NBA and basketball content. Thank you so much for watching the video. I appreciate you being here, and until next time, I'll see you later.